Welcome back. I see some familiar shadows, and maybe a few new ones who wandered in by accident. Don't worry, nobody stays a stranger here for long. We trade quiet stories, the kind that never quite end when the telling stops. So settle in, breathe slow, and listen close. Tonight's story waits just beyond the light. I'll tell it the way I remember it, which means some edges are soft. Memory keeps the shape of things but loses the polish. If you want hard facts, I don't have many. What I do have is a road that winds through the Appalachian hills, fog that arrives too early, and a man who stood where no one should stand. That's enough. The rest is feeling. Most weeks back then, I ran supplies along the backroads. Gas stations with flickering lights, old repair sheds, motels whose signs buzzed more than they glowed. They sat low in the valleys, half forgotten, half alive. You learn the mountain's rhythm after a while. Fog before sunset, pine in the air, the hum of tires over broken asphalt. I could tell where I was just by the way the steering wheel vibrated. It wasn't glamorous work, but I took a kind of quiet pride in knowing that road. I counted power poles to stay awake. I kept the same dented thermos, the same static-filled radio station. When the wheels sang their steady song, the world made sense. That afternoon, or evening, it blurs now. The sky had that washed-out color between grey and blue. Light flattened everything, made the ridges look like faded paper cutouts. The air smelled like wet bark and cold soil. I remember thinking how still everything felt, like the mountain was resting but not asleep. That calm mattered to me. It was the kind that sits on your shoulders and tells you, "You're fine. Just keep driving." The fog showed up earlier than it should have. Sometimes it creeps down the slope like a cat. Sometimes it rolls in heavy, filling the gaps between trees. That day, it came thick and low, hugging the road so tightly that the headlights carved only a short tunnel ahead of me. Everything outside that tunnel was erased. Not frightening, just careful. Fog asks for respect. I slowed, leaned forward a little, scanning for the next curve. Then I saw it, a darker patch inside the grey, a shape that didn't move the way fog moves. My first thought was a signpost or a stump. Then it straightened itself out of the haze, tall and narrow, right on the shoulder where the road bent around the ridge. A man, standing at the edge, toes almost to the drop. He looked like a worker, jacket, heavy pants, boots shiny with wet, the kind of man who fixes things alone. But the clothes hung heavy, soaked through, as if he'd walked a long way in a storm that hadn't touched me. I eased off the gas. Out there you don't drive past someone without checking. I cracked the window and called out, "You okay, buddy?" My voice went out and came back smaller. He didn't move, didn't even turn his head. He just faced the open valley, rigid as fence post. I called again, louder, same thing. Only the fog stirred, curling around him and breaking into threads. That's when I noticed the sound of the engine filled the whole world, but nothing else did. Not a bird, not wind. Even the tires seemed to whisper instead of hum. It's hard to say why I didn't get out. Something about the stillness made movement feel rude. I crept closer. Headlights washed over him. And for half a second, everything looked normal. A man in work clothes, wet and tired. But then the light did something strange. It hit his jacket and bounced back, pale and dull, but it didn't throw a shadow. It should have. The beam was direct, yet the space behind him stayed the same flat grey. Maybe it was just the fog scattering light, I told myself. A trick of the air. I blinked, rubbed at my eyes, and that's when I made my mistake. I looked down for barely a breath to switch off the radio so my own voice wouldn't sound stupid in the noise. When I looked up again, he was gone. Not walked away, not hidden. Gone. The shoulder was empty. The drop below lay untouched. No sliding gravel, no motion in the trees. The fog drifted the same way it had before, slow and steady, like nothing had been there to disturb it. I pressed the brake halfway and scanned the road ahead, heart doing that slow, heavy beat that tries to pretend it's calm. The windshield fogged for a blink before clearing, and still, nothing. If you've ever felt your logic fight with your bones, you'll know that moment. One part of me said, "You just lost sight of him." The other part whispered, "He was never really there." I told myself maybe he'd step back into the woods, quick and quiet, shy of the truck lights. Maybe he was drunk and hiding. Maybe anything that made sense. But the air inside the cab felt heavier, as if the mountain itself was leaning closer to listen. I told myself to move. Sitting there would only make my thoughts louder. I eased forward, let the road take me around the bend. The fog softened again, spread wider. Nothing unusual, just the same broken asphalt winding downhill. I laughed under my breath, a weak, tired sound. "You're fine," I said aloud, as if saying it could make it true. The radio came alive with static and half words. For company, I left it there, soft enough that it sounded like breathing. The steering wheel felt slick in my palms. I gripped it tighter. Then the rearview mirror caught my eye. For a blink, the headlights painted something pale at the curve behind me. A shape the size of a man, standing perfectly still where I'd stopped. It could have been fog, could have been nothing, but my chest tightened all the same. I looked away before my brain could finish building it into something real. I pressed harder on the gas. The road straightened and then fell away into dark. A few miles later, I saw the rest stop light through the haze. One of those lonely pull-offs with a soda machine and a trash bin that always smells faintly burnt. I pulled over, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to be somewhere still connected to the world. When I stepped out, the night air clung to me, cold, damp. I could smell the iron in it, the kind of smell rain leaves behind even when it hasn't rained. The truck engine ticked, metal cooling. Above, the single bulb flickered, throwing a halo of yellow on the gravel. No wind, no crickets, just the sound of my own jacket moving when I breathed. I leaned against the truck, listening for something ordinary. A bird, a car in the distance, anything. Nothing came. It was the kind of silence that doesn't sit still. It presses forward until you feel it in your ribs. Then, drip. A drop of water hit the ground near my boot. Another, slow, steady, like a faucet left half open. I looked up, expecting condensation from the light fixture, but the sound came from my level, just beside me. Drip. The smell of wet soil thickened. The gravel darkened in a small circle, like a coat sleeve was wringing itself out into the earth. I moved a step sideways. The drip followed, falling just after I stopped, like something timing itself with me. My hand hovered on the truck door handle. Every part of me wanted to call out, to say something stupid like, "All right, enough," but my throat wouldn't play along. Then it stopped. No more drops. The air went still again. Only the faint metallic tang stayed, sitting at the back of my tongue. I climbed in and shut the door too quickly, the way you close a curtain when you think someone's outside. Inside, the cab felt smaller than before. The smell of coffee and dust grounded me. Something human, something mine. I sat for a while with both hands on the wheel. waiting for my breath to slow down. Outside, the fog pressed gently against the windows, sliding in patterns that almost looked like hands smoothing a sheet. The drive after that was quieter. The mountain relaxed its shoulders. The road curved down into valleys, wider and easier. I told myself stories to fill the space. Maybe there was an optical trick. Maybe headlights had bounced off moisture. Maybe exhaustion was painting shapes where there were none. The sky began to pale, not sunrise exactly, just the color that comes before it. I rolled into the small station near the edge of town. The bell on the door rang. That sound alone made the world normal again. The man behind the counter was old, half asleep, radio humming somewhere behind him. I asked if there'd been road work up the ridge lately, anyone working nights. He squinted at me like I'd spoken nonsense. "Not since last summer," he said. "They keep talking about fixing that bend, but nobody does. Guardrails been missing years now." I nodded. He poured coffee into a paper cup and slid it across. My hand trembled when I took it, though I swear I didn't feel cold. When I stepped back outside, dawn had brushed the horizon, but the fog hadn't given up. It clung to my truck, thin and grey, refusing to burn off. I watched it for a second, then got in and drove. Work goes on, even after strange nights. Weeks passed. The route stayed the same. You get used to pretending things didn't happen exactly as they did. But every time I approached that ridge again, something in me changed. Not fear exactly, more like recognition, like walking past a grave you don't remember digging. The first few trips, I made myself look straight ahead. No slowing, no checking mirrors, just hands steady on the wheel. The road seemed to sense my attention. Fog thickened for a minute, then thinned, like testing my resolve. Once, I caught the faint flicker of headlights dimming as I passed that bend. The same hiccup of light from that night. I told myself it was wiring, or humidity, or nothing at all. But I felt the same pressure in my chest, the same thought whispering, "Don't stop, don't invite it." I never saw him again. Maybe that's mercy. Maybe that's how mountains keep their secrets. Still, sometimes when I can't sleep, I replay that drive. I see the fog tunnel closing in, the man standing at the edge like he belonged to the weather itself. I see how still he was, how the world bent around him but never touched him. I imagine calling out one more time. I imagine stepping out, tapping his shoulder, asking if he needed a ride. And I wonder if he would have turned, or if his face would have been nothing but fog. That's the thing that stays, not the fear, not even the mystery. It's the unfinished part, the sense that the story waited for me to do something I didn't. So I keep it with me, quietly. A reminder that some moments don't want to be solved. They just want to be remembered. And when I drive that route now, because I still do, there's always work to be done. I take that curve like a promise. No hesitation, no slowing down. Not because I'm brave, but because slowing down there feels like saying yes to something that should stay unanswered. The fog still leans close some nights, like it remembers me. Maybe it does. I keep my eyes forward, breathe easy, and let the mountain have what's its own. That's the whole of it. No ending twist, no hidden meaning, just a road, a shape, and the quiet understanding that not everything wants your attention. I saw a man once on the mountain road. Maybe he was real, maybe not. Either way, he's still there, in that bend of fog where I don't dare look. And every time I pass, I remind myself, some silences are invitations, and the smartest thing you can do is keep driving. Glad you stayed till the end. Nights like this have a way of holding on, don't they? There are older stories buried in the dark and new ones already waking. You'll find your way back. We all do. Until then, keep the lights low and the road in your memory clear.